being here. We're really excited today about this webinar. We just put it on Facebook Live for anyone who's missed attending today. And I was going to say put yourself on mute, but I think everyone is on mute. And put your questions that you have in the chat, and Anca will take them at the end. Anca, and is it Enache?
Enache.
Enache from 3P Impact Consulting is our presenter today. And Anca is passionate about sustainability and corporate responsibility. She holds certifications from most widely used sustainability standards and frameworks, and she has an MBA from CSUN. She has more than 10 years experience in public and private companies, various strategy, project management, and reporting roles. A few years back, she left her corporate role to follow her passion and work with small and medium-sized businesses to add a sustainability lens to their model. And I'm going to turn it over to Anca for the presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. It's an honor to be here. I want to first thank the Chamber for giving me this opportunity to talk about sustainability and ESG, and also thank my audience. And I see Rick for now and Nancy and Femi. So thank you for being here with me today. And I know you can be doing dozens of other things. So the fact that you're here, it's really, I'm honored that you give me your time. So this being said, this is my contact information. This is my actually my picture. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is Anca Enache, and this is the picture. So if you find several Anca Enache, go by this picture. Nancy already went through the housekeeping items, so I'm gonna skip that part. I was gonna talk about that, but I'm gonna jump right in the content of the webinar today. So unless you've been living under a rock, you heard about ESG and sustainability and carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions and diversity and inclusion and greenwashing and all these terms. And you may not maybe know necessarily all of them, but mostly I want to go over why you should know them and in what way they may impact your business. So today I'll start with ESG sustainability overview, talk about the major topics, and a quick review of third-party certifications and some resources that are free to use. So at your leisure, you can access them. Then we're going to finding your why, because knowing why you want to set up your strategy is going to drive your actions. So it can be a regulatory aspect, it can be just your intrinsic need to show that you're a responsible business, or different variations. So we'll cover that part. And then the third section of the presentation today, we're going to focus on 5 steps that you can take to create your strategy and implement it. Okay, so first section. The classic definition of sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability for future generations to meet their needs. And it also it's been different other terms, 3BL, triple bottom line, PPP, people, price, profit, but basically it's the same, looking from the same angles to how the company drives operations. ESG and sustainability are not necessarily the same. A lot of times they're used interchangeably, but sustainability is more like an umbrella term that focuses on all the efforts the company is taking to manage the impact environmentally, on social impact on their business model, and also how are they impacting the environmental and society at large with their operations. So it's just a general term. ESG is more data driven. We have these standards and frameworks, and they all have KPIs listed, and so this aspect that you can actually measure these efforts they're more looked at as ESG terms. Just a quick overview of what, or a list of what these ESG factors are. For environmental, social, and governance, so for environmental, obviously, it's what impacts the environment with energy and biodiversity and waste, material sourcing. So everything that derives from using resources, natural resources. The social aspect is more aligned with the employees, diversity and inclusion, working conditions, community engagement, customer engagement. And the G side, the governance, focuses on how the company is managed, ethical aspects, bribery, compensation, the board of directors, all the processes that the company is having in place to run the business. A lot of times, I mean, in general, ESG terms are called also non-financial terms, but their impact on a business has very much a financial aspect. Okay, so we're diving into the topics, and the biggest one is carbon, climate change. So this is a bit technical, and I don't want to spend too much time on this topic, but I want to make sure I explain why there's this big rush and urgency to look at our emissions and to cut our emissions as much as possible. So there is a carbon budget, and really smart scientists discovered that, or realized, calculated that we have a carbon budget of 3,000 million tons of CO2 that, when depleted, it's going to be an impact on the environment that we cannot go back from. So it started in the pre-industrial era, so around late 1850s. Because we issued so much carbon and other gases that are part of this carbon budget, we are now at a really critical level, very high level, they're already used. So from these 3,000 billion tons of CO2, we have probably a thousand left if we want to, if the impact is going to be increasing the temperature of 2 degrees Celsius, which is around 3.7, I think, Fahrenheit. So the more carbon we use from this budget, the more or the worse are the effects on the environment. And then up to a 2 degree impact is still manageable, but after that it's going to be it's not turning back. So at the current emission rate, and if we want to limit our increase of the temperature to 1.5, which would be a bit, right now we're at 1.2 already increase. So if we want to be a little bit worse than we are now, we have maybe 7-9 years of current emission rate. We're not going to meet that. So the next threshold is maybe we're going to meet a 1.7 degrees, or maybe a 2 at some, if we really cannot do better to cut our emissions. So with this 2% in mind, and with this budget left, we have 20, maybe 30 years left. So that takes us to 2050. So this is why you hear of all these pledges and targets and ambitions to cut carbon emissions by 2050. There's a 2030, 2040, 2050 target in place, but the 2050 is the major one, and this is when, with current emission rate, this is when it finishes, and after that is going to be even worse, climate-wise. So probably heard this 2015 Paris Agreement, where 191 countries in EU signed to all commit to cut emissions. And you've seen all these companies making pledges and working to really cut the emissions. And to actually get to the 2050 year with the 2 degrees Celsius impact, we have to halve emissions every decade. So the 2030, we have to have a 50% from 2020 stage, 50% emission, and then from there another 50%, and make sure we do our best to cut as much as possible to get to 2050. So it was a lot said on this slide, and it's very technical, but just wanted to set the stage as to why all this push for carbon and cut emissions and green energy and whatever what everything that drives from here to be more careful with how we emit carbon. Okay, this is pretty self-explanatory. So if we at 1.5, we're going to have a lot of coral loss, but at 2 degrees, they're all going to be gone. And to be honest, the way the pledges are now and the way the companies are involved in this, and all this back and forth between governments and parties, will not at pace to meet the 2 degrees by 2050. So we're looking more and more towards this in 50 years or so. So this is really a dire situation. And I'm not laughing, I'm just, it's critical. So from the carbon footprint, we have this carbon budget at everybody's issuing CO2, and it can be calculated by item, by project, by company, by person even. So there are calculators out there. There's guidance how to calculate, and the fact is we all we emit CO2 is it from just heating our homes, running AC, driving the car around. Even when I buy a pair of jeans, it's how that cotton was grown, how much water was used, and then to be dyed and then processed and transferred to me, and I buy it and then I wear it and then I wash it. So there are emissions upstream from me with the process of growing the cotton and making it in jeans, and then from my current situation, when I wash and dry it, I emit CO2, and then at the end when I discard it, if I discard it in the landfill, methane gas. So it's the entire life of the jeans. There's a lot of carbon emissions associated to that. So this is why we have to be careful as to, even for jeans, don't wash them that much, or when they need to be washed, or when you discard them, maybe you repurpose them. Or there are stores now that they're taking back clothing to be recycled. So there's a lot going on, but still we need to do more. So this slide is another technical one. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just wanted to explain when we hear about the carbon footprint and there are requirements to disclose scope 1 or scope 2 or scope 3 of emissions. This is what is based on. So all these are the gases that are forming the GHG emissions suite. And then these are the direct emissions that the company is doing for their operations. And there are upstream scope 2 and then downstream scope 3 and both sides. So it's very complex, and it looks at I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's from when the material is sourced, if it's a material, to how it's being manufactured, maybe the utility, the machinery, or how it is used, the energy that is being used to run it, when it's obsolete, how is it dismantled, and what happens to those parts. So, and even for people, where it's how much we travel is part of a business. If it's a business travel, it's part of of the company's footprint. So it's a very complex process to calculate the entire scope 1 and 2 and 3 emission inventory. So and I'll go over a little bit later as to when it's required to maybe calculate all these 3 scopes. But for now, I just wanted to give you an idea of how complex it is, but we need to do it because, carbon budget. Now, this is why circularity is another big part of ensuring that we are using less and, with that, fewer emissions. Circularity, aka circular economy, cradle to cradle, is a process where everything is, as much as possible, part of a loop. So we waste as little as possible. So we're used to this take, make, distribute, use, dispose model, and it's a lot of waste created. And now there are efforts to change the model to be more circular, right? From take, we make, we distribute, we use, and then when we dispose, before we dispose, maybe we can repair, maybe we can repurpose it. And then if we need to dispose, maybe we recycle it. And if it's a part that is still good or can be recycled, it goes back in the cycle. And it's again used to manufacture something, distributed, but then comes to the user and then in a different form maybe, and we're using that item to whatever the purpose is. But then when we discard it, again, look at what we can do to limit the waste. So as little as possible to go to the landfill, because it's it maybe not cost as much to water bottles. It's cost less to buy a virgin plastic water bottle, disposable ones, than to recycle it. But overall cost of recycling it it's lower when you look at how much energy and everything is saved from not producing that water bottle again. In line with the circularity, we have another topic that I'm not sure how many of you heard about it. I didn't know until maybe last year. There's a Earth Overshoot Day. So meaning that every day we calculate how much we use as a society, as humanity, from natural resources, and if we give the Earth time to regenerate that resource. And you've seen from the 70s, we've been going using more and more. And at this point, we're using maybe as we will have 1.75 planets or 2 planets worth of resources we're using. In 21 and 22, it was a bit of decrease in 22, but only 1 day, so it's not much impact. So there are efforts for circularity to grow at a bigger scale, but it's a lot of work to be done. And I think it's at some point part of everybody's role to do something about it. Okay, so this was with carbon. Switching now from carbon to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is a topic that I'm sure most of you heard of it. It's more up in the media than maybe other topics, or at least it's more applied companies across the board. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is just a program that ensures that the company is not only mirrors the society in which it operates, but it also tears down institutional bias around race and other identities. And I put here a few stats that really, speak for themselves about how important diversity and inclusion, equity is in a company's operations, because the more diverse a company is, and I'm not talking about diverse as in just different ages or different ethnicities or different race. It's about education and skill and beliefs and personalities. because everybody being different, we all think of the same problem from different angles. And so that collaboration brings more better ideas and more collaboration. As part of equity, I really wanted to add this image here because I think it's really clear how it shows that equality is just giving everybody the same opportunity, but it's not necessarily, I don't want to say fair, but we all have different needs. So by including the equity aspect, we customize what each the opportunities for everybody, what they each need, so they actually really empowers them and it gives them opportunity to grow. It's just a matter of giving everybody what they need. Okay, another topic I'd like to talk about is greenwashing, and you've been hearing it about a lot, I'm sure. It's initially it was a term more reflective of an environmental problem or a claim of companies, but I think now it's more inclusive, and we can either mention here social washing if it's we're looking at the social aspects from the ESG that are being claimed without they're being stated in the reports or company's website, but there's no a valid claim. It's not a data behind it to support that claim. So greenwashing, it's a form of PR or marketing when a certain characteristic of a product or service is enhanced or looked at through an environmental benefit, but actually it's not. It's just marketing. There's no data behind it. And we heard about what the Volkswagen scandal a few years back with the emissions. The part was not calculated right, the emissions, obviously reporting under, but Walmart had a problem with their greenwashing environmental claims, and H&M, Shein. So, and not only the apparel, I think there are other, I skip now, but it can be greenwashing happens everywhere. And because it's so much push now for companies to be transparent and disclose ESG efforts, if those efforts are not done the right way, or there's no substance behind it, and they're just making claims, consumers now and society understands more these topics now, so it's easier for all of us to smell if it's a claim is truly accurate, real, or is just a greenwashing screen for us. Okay, and there are just a few examples of ESG gone wrong, or claims gone wrong. It's about, as I was saying, they're called greenwashing, but I think some of them are social washing. They're looking at social aspects for me of ESG, with female staff who earn less, with racial discrimination in Tesla, and there are a few on environmental claims for H&M and Porsche. So it's a serious thing. In the UK now, even companies that are accused of greenwashing are actually it can face illegal repercussions. So it's not a joke. So quickly, I'm running out late with my time, so I just want to quickly go over 2 certifications, and we're going to share the slides. So you're going to get them, and you can read through them more or access these links. But B Corp certification is a third-party certification that helps the company, one, strategize on ESG issues, but also gets that verification, and it's a seal put on the website or the product everywhere, and that is an extra level of assurance that the company is doing something right from an ESG perspective. And so this is a B Corp, which looks at all ESG aspects, and the second one is the Green Business Bureau certification. It's a little bit more focused on the environmental energy savings, waste. It's more focused on the environmental aspect. And the next two slides, this one and the next one, so these two slides, I'm including here some resources that are free to use. I mentioned these are the sustainability and frameworks and standards that offer guidance how to implement their standards, how to understand them and how to apply them. These are all free resources, and depending on what the need is for the company, is with more climate, like here, or more general, to look at the entire ESG, so environmental, social, and governance from all the pillars. These are the ones that you can use. So with this, we get to the find your why. And this is probably the most important part of today's presentation, because understanding why you need to implement a strategy or to develop one and implement it, it will help you, to guide you towards how to go about it, what actions to take and how to work for the strategy, and also will make sense for your company. So, and the first one here is regulation compliance. So there are, in some situations, you may be forced to start disclosing, either because we have these proposals, nationwide. We're waiting for ACC to publish their requirements for public listed companies on climate related risks and greenhouse gas emissions inventory. It's a proposals now. There's another one by the administration for federal contractors, above certain amount. I think it's 7.5 million per year, certain disclosures, and then over 50 million per year, more disclosures. So proposals, but still, that's the direction we're going to. So there are more and more organizations that they have their own pledges, as we mentioned, the carbon budget. So more and more are officially said, yeah, I'm gonna do this. It's my ambition to cut emissions. But because they are broad and they are working through supply chains, value chains up and down, they cannot do this alone. So they have to engage their partners. And if you're one of these partners, they need to engage with, for them to reach their goals, you're gonna have to help them reach their goals. So you're gonna have to disclose. So it may be a compliance aspect. California, as I mentioned, is a little bit more ESG driven, let's say, than other states. And there are laws and bills and proposals to hear very often, and it's about the climate, but it's also about recycling content, or pay scale, or garment employee working conditions, and it was one about fast food. So it's a lot going on, a lot coming our way. And if that's what we need to do to maintain our relationships with the federal contractor, our client, or vendor in the supply chain or value chain, to meet their needs to disclose on climate emissions or whatever else ESG goals they made for themselves, you're gonna be forced to comply, or you're gonna need to finish that relationship. So it can be, as I said, regulation or need driven, but the magic comes when you decide to do this for yourself, because your company is doing something good and you want to share your story and you want to see tell how responsible you are, but also grow from that, because it's benefits of ESG programs are very wide and are very complex and are very far-reaching. And I listed here a few, and I can go through a few, but and maybe a little bit, it will make sense later when I go through the 5 steps, and you'll see, because the process is so thorough and it touches on all the aspects of the business. This is why all these benefits make sense, because responsible company was going to look at how they're using resources, how they're sourcing the resources, how are they managing their emissions, how are they looking internally their culture, the employees, how are they engaging the community and the customers, and then governance, how they're looking at the risks that are coming their way, and ensuring that the company is run ethically. And there are so many puzzle pieces going into this big picture. And once that part of is done, all these benefits are just come like a side effect. You do the work, but then you enjoy the fruits, because the companies, the bank is going to be more willing to give you a loan with the better terms, because you are such a responsible company and you're better prepared, and you'll have an eye on what's coming and risks and opportunities that may impact your business. And with your strong D&I program and overall employment engagement, you retain your talent and attract more talent. It's about brand recognition. A sustainable company has a certain power to it when it comes to engaging with consumers and drives brand loyalty. So it's a lot. There are a lot of benefits from being a sustainable business if it's done right. So let me see. So I mentioned it, or maybe it has to be. It has to come from inside. So you find your why, because if you just do it because you're required to, you're gonna disclose what is needed, but it's not gonna affect your business successfully the way it would when you implement a strategy right. You will check a box and you're gonna provide whatever it is needed to your customer or your vendor, but it's not gonna help you grow. And I want to take a moment here to differentiate between these 2 types of strategies or angles, because there's one way to have a sustainability strategy when it covers, let's say, I want to make sure in my supply chain I don't have any child labor, or I want to have good work conditions, or I want to make sure in a apparel company I don't have items, clothing from cotton sourced from I forgot the name of that. It's a province in China where there's a ban now of cotton from that. So if you want to make sure that your supply chain is safe, that's only to look at it. But the power and the magic in ESG and sustainability is when you look at your operations comprehensively, and when you apply the strategy at the core level. This is when the value comes in, and the growth and the opportunities, when all the roles in the company are aligned to look through a sustainable lens through everything that everybody does in the company. So even if sometimes you you're gonna talk about your strategy being a sustainable strategy, at least you know that for you it means that it's a comprehensive strategy. It's not just a certain ESG topic that you want to engage with. Unless this is what you need right now, and it's fine, but when you're ready to actually really do the work and really do that, maybe 360 overview from a sustainability lens, that's when the magic will happen. Okay, I have 10 more minutes to talk about the strategy, 5 steps, and then I'll take any questions you have. Okay, so there are 5 steps. They're not easy steps. They're not quick. They're not cheap. It's a lot of work that goes into this. But as I said, when you're ready for it, do it. If not necessarily the whole thing from the beginning, do it a little bit, but put in the effort when you can and when you think it's your time and you have that why in you to tell your story and make it right or improve it if it's not necessarily where you want it to be. Apply these steps. So first step, assessment and discovery phase. So here we look at where we are as a company and what are our peers, not competition, or peers here, what are they doing and what is the industry, what's happening. Have like an assessment of a baseline, where you are, and then look at your business environment, your climate environment, your legal environment, everything around you that is going to impact your business. And here is the beauty here is that by engaging all your stakeholders, so first of all, you need to understand who your stakeholders are, or the more important ones, and engage with them. So suppliers, customers, community, employees, local government, whoever is that it's impacting your business or you are impacting in a way that the stakeholder, everything needs to go into this effort to assess what's material for your business. So what's material? That's pretty much it. I'm sure you heard this, or you're gonna hear this. The materiality aspect. Identify certain areas that are really driving value for you, or if it's a risk for you. If it doesn't go wrong, if this goes wrong, you may not have a business tomorrow, or whatever. Kind of to the extreme, but find 5-7 items that are really they make your company or make impact your future as a company, your growth, and then focus on those. And as a step 2, make a plan. The make a plan is you know where you want to go. You're going to have goals, short term, medium term, long term, and you assemble your team. So if you don't have big goals at the beginning because you're just starting this and you need to see how it's going, and it's a process. It's going some time. So you can just appoint one person to be the champion and make sure they hold you accountable or overall oversees the project. If you have a bigger company, or if you are more mature in your journey, you may actually put together a committee from different roles, because ESG is in every role. And the way, like if we take a DE&I, for example, you're going to have this goal to improve our diversity. There's going to mean one thing logistically, if we or when we engage with suppliers, because we want diverse suppliers, and going to mean another thing for an HR team, because we want a diverse pool of candidates. So you're going to mean something else for the board if you want a more diverse board. So each role in the company is going to impact the success of the project, of the program, but also it has to be customized for what is relevant in their role, so they can actually do the work and be part of the success of the program. And then you identify what processes you are missing. If you want to, disclose on greenhouse gas emissions, but you don't have necessarily a streamlined way to have all your bills in place to know all the emissions or your cost on energy, or cover that. So see from where you want to go to, from where you are, what's missing, and work on the processes. And then you implement whatever processes you decided to go for, goal and medium-term goals. If process is in place and you need to ensure that they are embedded into all the roles and organizations, because as I said, working together from different angles, that's how the strategy really creates value. And implement internal controls, because if we say we're going to do something, but nobody's checking, we might not do that thing. And it, at the end, is not going to be a successful implementation. And we might have wasted time because we forgot the step to implement controls. The next step is we need to report. And reporting may or may not be needed as a way to communicate our efforts. Reporting can be also internally for you to know where I am now. I want to be there. How am I tracking towards that? And depending on what reporting, what the audience is, if you want to show your program to a lender, it may be more focused on the financial impact. If you want to show your maybe your community or your employees want you to be more transparent, maybe you're going to be more well-rounded report that has different aspects. So depending on who the audience of the report is, you may set different KPIs and can look at things differently. And again, if you need data and you don't have it, look for where you can take it and make sure it's accurate, it's timely, it's data integrity checks, another set of checks in place. And then the last step, but necessary, is like loop now. Set up feedback processes, and because if you're talking to your customers and you have a good thing going and you communicate and learn something new and apply, and then maybe have a new revenue stream, or if that communication stops there, it's your loss. You need to engage with the customer as much as possible, with your suppliers, with all your stakeholders, to make sure that whatever is true today is going to be true tomorrow, or 6, 8, 1 year, 1 month from now, it's still the same situation, it's still the same environment, and you're still doing good. But always have those checks in place, feedback loops, and have a recurring meeting, if you can quarterly, or if not every 6 months, but have a process in place to constantly check your environment, because everything changes legal-wise, from a legal perspective, from a customer behavior perspective, from a material sourcing perspective. So it's a lot going on. And not necessarily a step, but overall through all this journey, communication. And it can be first internally to your small group of people who are involved in setting strategy. It can be a bit larger towards your employees once you have a little bit better handle of it, or maybe at some point, or not, maybe it will at some point get to a level you're going to have to communicate outside with your efforts. And so communication is very important, done right. And it's good to have a transparency. And you can say, we're at the beginning of our journey. We have a lot, to go through, but we identified these areas we're going to focus on next, and this is our progress, and we're going to be posting here our success. So whatever efforts you're driving in your business, tell about it, because this is how your customers and employees and everybody, they get to know what you're doing and see that you're responsible, and it's not just greenwashing. It's actual work done behind, and this is a true what's my strategy, what is the core business to be sustainable. And finally, recommendations are close to this. So very important, find your why. If there's one thing that you get from the presentation, is find your why. If it's at this point is just too much and you cannot, and you're just going to focus on what's required from you, if you have federal contracts, or if you're part of a larger supply chain or value chain and you need to disclose, then maybe focus on that. But if really you think it makes sense for you to do this work to get all those benefits that we talked about earlier, then put in a work. Maybe start small, but start now. The cost of not doing anything on, not doing something on ESG now, it may seem like cost saving. I'm not spending money on this, but long run, it's gonna drain you, because it's, the society now is going towards a sustainable, responsible type of business, because we don't have resources as we used to have. Emissions go off the roof. We need to cut back on that. So it's a lot of movement and a lot of transition to a different economy. So if you need to be in line with the trends to be to keep your business relevant. Partner up, because some challenges are challenging. So some start, it's hard to work on them alone, and you can partner up and tackle a bigger issue. And just want to quickly touch on the, I know there's a movement, anti-ESG, and I want to, in my opinion on that, is that ESG is good if it's done as a strategy, sustainability in general, the strategy, and helps you improve your business and helps you look around you and see how you're using resources and how you're trying to save and how you're cutting back on waste, how you're looking at community and employees and how you're running the business. That's not the problem. The ESG, anti-ESG movement is about certain investing funds that look at ESG from their perspective, and they're not very transparent to their ratings or with their funds. So, and then some states actually are more vocal than others on this issue. So don't let that cloud your view on how important ESG and sustainability is, because they're different issues. So I'm not sure I touch on that. So quickly, I have a few stats here about millennials are going to be bulk of the workforce, and they are very environmental conscious and very, they look at social justice, and they're very keen on ESG issues. So they're going to drive a lot of consuming, a lot of purchasing, a lot of your employees are going to be part of this pool. So one more reason to engage with this ESG sooner rather than later. And then my last slide, just some contact information here for me. My website, I have an offer for you today if you are interested to see how you can apply this to your business, and you need maybe more guidance or you need help, or even though I give you the resources there and you can have the slides. So if you like to read and dig in, that's going to be a good way to do it on your own as well. So just if you need any outside help. And then I have a feedback form here, the green QR code. If you can please scan it, send me your feedback. I really want your honest opinion, because we all want to improve and maybe an event or just improve the way I make these presentations. So I highly appreciate your honest feedback. And for those who would fill out the survey today, I'll send over by email a guide to help them start their journey when they're ready. And one of the questions in the survey is about the industry. So I want to see if I can group certain industries to send over maybe a customized guide, but not going to be a generic one if there are too spread out. So anyway, so that was my presentation for today. I can stop sharing now, and for a few minutes only left. Sorry, let's take on questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the live stream too.
Okay.
So what about Earth? I don't know about Earth Overshoot Day. I learned something new. So there's no questions in the chat.
Oh.
So I don't know if anyone wants to have. Oh, Rick has his hand up. So Rick, you want to ask a question?
Yes. First of all, Anca, thank you very much for the presentation and all the information given. It was It was great information. Just like I think it was RT that mentioned that I didn't know about the Earth Overshoot Day, so that was some awesome information. And then I had a question on the carbon budget that you said, is that an overall carbon budget for Earth itself, or does each organization have a carbon budget?
That's for entire Earth. So it's 3,000 billion tons, and we all share it. But that's only if we want to limit the impact on the environment, to climate, to raise 2 degrees Celsius, so 3.7 Fahrenheit. We can spend more than that, but then it's going to be, we're going to go to 3 degrees or 4 degrees, depending on how much we're emitting. But the carbon budget, the 3,000, is just to keep us in a decent
level
at the 2 degrees Celsius,
okay,
to 2050.
All right, thank you. And then, so my question really is on the ESG reporting, and what have you found as, like, there's several models out there now that you can kind of buy, or programs to help you do the reporting, especially when it comes to, you mentioned Scope 3. We have our own climate action planning, a CAP, so and we're trying to figure out what exactly, how we want to approach the ESG reporting. So that's one thing. That's if you know of any programs out there that you've used in the past or whatever that are pretty good as far as for the reporting process, if you could make a couple recommendations, I'd like to look into them. And then I really appreciated how you mentioned ESG and the whole D&I conversation being part of the ESG reporting, especially when you think about it as far as, the equity frame that you talked about, and how you need to customize the needs in order to empower your employees. And then there was on your slide, you said EVs, that California is going to start selling EV only at 2025. Is that 2020? 35?
35. Oh, it's a typo. Yes, apologies.
Okay.
2035. You're right. Thank you for catching it. I'll fix that. 2035. Yes.
And so, yeah, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So for the first question, recommendations, I know there are a lot of tools out there. I looked into a few. I don't know if I necessarily found one that I really recommend. For me, I like to understand the needs and the business to maybe mix a few frameworks to really customize the report if it's not a certain frame that is required for some certain stakeholders. But these tools that I came across, they're very cookie cutters. Oh, you're gonna have to, you want to cut these emissions, then how many cars, or how they're not, and to talk about the Scope 3, but in general, they're not looking at the business, how they're driving value, and what resources they're using, and how they're overall creating their using their inputs. So it's I think it's still an early stage, and they're gonna get better, the tools. I think it's need more to understand the need of the business to recommend a framework or a certain set of KPIs, than to just check a box and filling some questions, preset answers, and then a framework is going to come out. So they're okay, I guess, for the beginning, but they're not covering the true potential of looking at the business through all the angles to actually make the most of these frameworks. Yeah, the other ones were comments, and thank you for your comments and for the question.
Thank you.